again. Today I am here with my Iplehouse JID girl, who I'm going to be doing a body review of. The main reason I'm doing this video is because my friend told me that there weren't a lot of reviews for the JID bodies, so I thought it would be a good idea maybe to do one. I'm very new to the review thing. This is my only doll currently, but I have watched other ones, and hopefully I do okay. I have looked at a lot of other dolls, different types of posability, and that kind of thing, so hopefully this will give you an idea of the Iplehouse JID girl bodies. So this is my girl Aya. She's an Iplehouse SOA. As you can probably see already, their sculpts are very beautiful, very detailed, very lifelike, but their posability overall is pretty terrible. But I will go over that with you a little more. So I'll start from top to bottom. So the Iplehouse dolls are completely S-hooks everywhere, including the head. The head cap is magnetic. The magnets hold pretty well. I have had one fall out, but I glued it in fairly easy. I just used super glue. So as you can see, it has the S-hook for the head. It is pretty easy to get her head on and off. All I have to do is lift and turn it, and her head just pops right off. And the S-hook stays fairly well, and it's very easy to get the head back on. I just do the exact same thing, just lift and turn it, and you can see her head went on nice and easy. For head movement, her head is a bit wobbly, and I've heard that a lot of JID girls and other Iplehouse dolls have that kind of problem. But the actual rotational movement is pretty good. So this is her head normal. That's as far back as it will go. That's how forward it will stay on its own. Side. Side. So the side to side movement is actually really good, and her head does stay fairly well. She does like to tip to the side a little bit, and sometimes her head will lean a little bit forward, but it could be worse, for sure. So for her shoulder joints, her arms, as you can see, do not like to stay up on their own very well at all. Let's see if I can get her to do it. Once in a while her arm will stay up on its own, but it doesn't generally stay very far. So her arm will go up pretty far, but it won't stay there at all. It just goes right back down. See? For her elbows, as you can see, they lock into place very nicely. That's the joint there. When it's like that, that's the front. That's as far back as they will go on their own when they're not locked in place. And it is a double joint, so that's where they go on their own, and it's the only position they'll stay in if they're on the first joint. If I use the second one, that's where it stays on its own. So first, second. So it does help you pose her a little bit, but the joint, I find, just doesn't look very nice when it's bent. It's not, it's decently smooth, but I find the joint's kind of boxy on the end there. You could probably see it's not as rounded as it could be. But it does lock into place very easy, and it bends nicely, but it doesn't stay well. Her arms do really like to just pop into the folded position, so I can't get her arms to stay straight very much. Her wrists have pretty good movement. Oh, you can see her elbow bend. So that's as far back as they will go. Oh. That's as far back as they'll go. And, sorry. And that's as far down as they'll go. So they don't go down very far, but they go up pretty far, which is pretty good. And then side to side, there really isn't much movement, as you can see. The hands, I wouldn't even think about trying to change. They don't look like they'd be easy to change at all. I would honestly be terrified of losing the hook inside of her. But their hands are very beautifully sculpted, and I will also post some pictures at the end of the video of some of her sculpting details, because the details are absolutely amazing. Okay, so her chest is actually probably her best part in her entire body for posing. It tends to stay in place very well when I just want it like this, but it does move pretty fluidly. So in terms of how far back she will go, that's how far back she'll go. The only thing I will note is that when it comes to her going back, that's what she looks like in the front. So it doesn't look pretty from the front, but as long as you have it covered, like if you want her in a pose like this, and she is closed or covered, you're not going to notice it. So it's good for a laying down pose, but for anything else, probably not. So yeah, it goes back pretty far. That's how far forward she'll go. I was mostly surprised with how far forward she goes because of the fact that she has a glamber-sized breast. So I really thought I was going to have issues with her moving forward because of how large her chest is. But it actually moves pretty well. It doesn't look the best, as you can see, but she does bend forward. And then one side, that's how far it'll go. And the other side is how far it'll go. Most of the movement does have to do with the fact that the piece is pretty movable. Alright, so her hip joints, she does not have the mobility hip type leg, so it's just one solid piece. There's no rotational movement. Her leg goes up that far and stops. It doesn't go up any further. That is how far back it will go comfortably without me pushing on it to pop out. And that's how far it'll go to the side. So it doesn't go up very far. She does not sit well at all. If you try to sit her in the position that she should be in, which is like this, she won't sit up. So she just kind of will fall backwards. She won't hold herself up. See? If I want to get her to sit, I have to force her up like this, in which case her joints pop out, which does not look attractive. So most of the time she's wearing skirts, because if I want her to sit, her legs have to pop out. Otherwise she won't sit up on her own. When I do sit her like that, she is leaning forward quite a bit, so it doesn't look the best for display. I tend to have to arrange her against something so that she won't fall backwards or look uncomfortable. The knees are very nice looking when they're just like this, and even when they're bent, they're not bad either. They're definitely better than her elbows, I would say. So knees, that is when it's in the straight position. And she does have a double joint. So that is where it goes on the first joint. That's her knee. And if I bend the second joint, it doesn't like to go on its own. You kind of have to force it a little bit, but that is how far it will go. So if you wanted to, she could probably do a kneeling pose fairly easily. It would just take some balancing, I think. As you can see, her leg doesn't touch the back here, so it would probably take a little work, but you could get her to kneel. Her ankles are the bane of my existence. I currently have her heeled feet on. Again, her feet are S hooks, which I can show you. See that? It's an S hook. They're not overly difficult to change, but I have injured myself more than once doing it because I tend to pinch myself really bad trying to hold the S hook in place. The main issue I have with her feet is that if I stand her at all on anything, that's what they do. They just pop right out. They don't like to stay where they're supposed to be. I'm not really sure why it's like that, but they pop out really bad. But for foot movement, that is when they're in the regular position. That is how far forward they will go. That is how far back they will go. So they don't move very far. And then side and side. So again, the movement isn't fantastic. So yeah, overall her posability is not very good. But the sculpting is absolutely beautiful. She looks very, very real. And she's very pretty. I find stains, I'm very bad for getting little marks on her, mostly from fabric, but they do come off very, very easy with a magic eraser. Overall though, she's just not a very good poser. She does stand pretty well. I will show you her standing. So before I show you how she stands, I figured I'm going to switch her to her flat feet so that you can accurately see how she stands just on her own without shoes on, because I find that sometimes when she has shoes on, she can be more difficult to get to stand. So I'm going to switch her feet, but I figured I might as well show you that process as well. So here is the switching of the feet. Okay. So you can see I really have to pinch the S hook here to get it to stay without going away. But once you actually get it, it's not too difficult. So that was pretty cooperative. Sometimes it's worse. Here's the other one. Ta-da! Flat feet! Okay, so first I will show you how easily she stands. Sorry for her awkward pose. So you can see she stands very easily on her own. I just put her there and she just stands. See if I can adjust her head. As you can also see, one of her elbow joints popped when I was trying to put her in a standing position. But she stands very, very well. I will also show you her sitting. So this is her sitting in the position where her hip joints are still where they should be. I have her close to the wall here so that when she falls back, or if she falls back, you will be able to see how it happens and she won't take any damage. So I will show you. So this is her sitting, and I'm going to let go. You can see she will not sit up on her own at all. If I put her in the position where she will sit, which is not easy. So you can see she's quite leaned forward. And sorry, she has a lot of hair. Her hip joints are popped out. Her skirt hides them. She's quite leaned forward though. She kind of looks like a normal person slouched forward. When her head is up, you don't notice it as much. But it isn't the nicest looking sit. So yeah, that is my body review for the Iplehouse JID body with Glamour Bust. Overall, like I said, her posing isn't very good. I would give her maybe a 3 or 4 out of 10 for posing at most. She does not pose very well, but the sculpting is beautiful. As I mentioned, I will put pictures at the end of the video of her sculpting so you can see all the details. I'll even use my good camera. So you'll be able to actually really see how beautiful the sculpting is. In terms of overall, like are JIDs or Iplehouse dolls in general worth the buy? Appearance-wise, absolutely. Posability, if that's what you're going for, if you want to do like really elaborate photo shoots, I probably wouldn't recommend them. She does pose okay. I can usually make it work, but it is quite a pain. Like I said, she does stand very well. And her chest movement is pretty good. Her hands aren't too bad, but other than that, it's not easy to pose her at all. So yeah, I am going to apologize for how awkward I am in this video, because I am always super awkward in videos, but I'm trying. And I hope my review of Aya and her body and her posing was helpful. So yeah.